Good morning. It's great to see so many faces back that we haven't seen in a little while. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of the Desert. I'm Joni Padduck, and I'll be your worship associate for this morning. And I'm delighted to be working alongside Reverend Ian Riddell, who most of you know. And I have a little birdie told me that it's his birthday tomorrow. So, Joel, and as Bill and I always say at the end of that, and many more. As we begin this morning, we acknowledge that we are in the historic homelands of the various bands of Cahuilla people, and we honor the unique relationship that we hope emerges between our community and the indigenous people and their traditional territories. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Cahuilla people whose lands and water we benefit from today. In this congregation, we welcome people of all sexual orientations, gender identities, and of all ages. People of all economic statuses and professions, of all physical and mental abilities. People of all races and ancestries and cultures. We welcome you wherever you come from, whoever you love, whatever your immigration status or civic engagement. We welcome all those who will learn and grow with us as we commit together to embrace the rich and beautiful diversity of the world and to build a community centered in justice, compassion, and love. You are welcome here, and we're glad you're with us this morning. It is important to us here in this community to create a safe and healthy environment for everyone who gathers in worship, including those who are immunocompromised or have other risk factors. Our COVID protocols about vaccination and mask use are in place because we wish to do everything we can to protect all of us. A reminder that masks covering both your nose and your mouth are required to attend in-person services, preferably KN95. If you arrived without a mask, I'm sure our people at the welcome table took care of getting you a mask. Please choose to act for the health and safety of our community. Our service is always available streamed on our website if you need to observe from home. If you would like to be on our email list to learn more about us and our programming, please contact the office at admin, ADMIN, @uucod.org. And just one announcement this morning, I think most people know, but Women's Night Out is tomorrow night. And if anybody wants to join us and you haven't signed up, please contact Margot Perry. Her information is in the directory. And now Reverend Ian will ring our Tibetan bowl to begin our service, and then we will listen to our music for centering.
Good morning. I am the Reverend Ian Riddell, and I have the honor of serving this congregation that sings so fabulously, thank you, as its minister. However you found us, however many times you've been here with us in person or online, welcome. We are a congregation and a tradition that celebrates the richness and beauty of individual lives and commits to working together to weave a tapestry made stronger and more vibrant by our collaboration and by the sharing of our lives and our visions for a thriving future for all life. We strive to build the beloved community of resilience, hope, and love in the face of fear and apathy. We practice the opening of hearts, the working of hands, and the lifting of spirits in the service of love. And we share the sacred breath. We gather together to build the beloved community breath by breath, word by word, note by note, step by step. We gather together to sing and speak and dance and breathe the beloved community into being. This is our work. This is our calling. This is our joy. I invite you now to use that sacred breath and rise in body or in spirit as we sing together our opening song, Love Will Guide Us. The words are on the screen. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from grief to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
And now, as Reverend Ian lights the chalice, please read along with me. The words are on the screens. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And now Bryna will come forward, please, and light our Biopoc candle. We light these candles in solidarity with Black, Indigenous, and other people of color as they journey toward spiritual wholeness. May we, as a beloved community, work to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression. May we live out our principles so that justice, dignity, and equity for all prevail.
And now I'll invite the ushers to come forward as we take a collection for the support and thriving of our community.
And now for our reading this morning, Why the Body? From The Body is Not an Apology. Humans are a varied and divergent group with all manner of beliefs, morals, values, and ideas. We have struggled to find agreement on much of anything over the centuries. Just think about how long we argued about gravity and whether the world is shaped like a pizza. But here is a completely non-controversial statement I think we can have census around. You, my dear, have a body. And should you desire to remain on this spinning rock hurtling through space, you will need a body to do it. Everything else we think we know is up for debate. Are we spiritual beings? Depends on who you ask. Do humans have souls? We've been fighting about that since Aristotle likened the souls of fetuses to those of vegetables. But bodies? Yep, we got one of those. And given this widely agreed upon reality, it seems to me if ever there were a place where the practice of radical love could be a transformative force, the body ought to be that location. When we speak of the ills of the world, violence, poverty, injustice, we are not speaking conceptually. We are talking about things that happen to bodies. When we say millions around the world are impacted by the global epidemic of famine, what we are saying that millions of humans are experiencing the physical deterioration of muscle and other tissue due to the lack of nutrients in their body. Injustice is an opaque word until we are willing to discuss its material reality. Racism, sexism, ableism, homo or transphobia, ageism, fat phobia are algorithms created by human struggle to make peace with the body. A radical self-love world is a world free from the systems of oppression that make it difficult and sometimes deadly to live in our bodies. A radical self-love world is a world that works for every body. Creating such a world is an inside-out job. How we value and honor our own bodies impacts how we value and honor the bodies of others. As we awaken to our indoctrinated body shame, we feel inspired to awaken others and to interrupt the systems that perpetuate body shame and oppression against all bodies. There is a whisper we keep hearing. It is saying that we must build in us what we want to see built in the world. When we act from this truth on a global scale, using the lens of the body, we usher in the transformative opportunity of radical self-love, which is the opportunity for a more just, equitable, and compassionate world for all.
These are the joys and sorrows of this community on this day in September. Bill and Joni light a candle of remembrance. Today, September 11th, marks the 21st anniversary of one of the saddest days in our country's history. 3,255 people went to bed that night before and never lived past 10 a.m. on 9/11. Many others have since passed from 9/11 related illnesses and injuries. We hold them in our hearts today. Margaret and Sandy offer today's flowers in remembrance of 9/11, remembering those who perished, those who tried to save them, and those of us whose hearts were broken. Just 5 numbers. Someone else writes 91101. The pain lingers. Remembering Adeline Marie Porter, who left us 9/11/2000, also in my heart. And Sheila Goldner asks us to light a candle for her cat, Gia, who she had to put to sleep on July 28th, 2022, because she had kidney failure. We hold Gia and Sheila in our heart. These are the joys and sorrows that have been spoken aloud to us today. There are many more that remain in the quiet of our hearts, things in the world around that cause us grief or joy, things in our own lives that cause us consternation or pain or celebration or relief. And so we hold all of those quietly together today. I invite you into a time of contemplation and reflection. Today, I invite you to be comfortable in your seats. All of these things that we hold, all of the love and fear, all of the anger and joy, all of the worry and comfort we hold in our hearts and our minds, and we hold them in our bodies. These bodies which are ours from the beginning of our life until the end. These bodies which are who we are. And we so often neglect these bodies. We so often forget that they are beautiful gifts. And so I invite you for a moment to pause and breathe together. In your mind and in your heart, hold your body, yourself, with all of its aching, with all of its stretching, with all of its smoothness and hairiness and tenderness and warts, all of its aches and pains, all of its strength and wonder, all of its anguish and its pleasure. Hold it in your heart. Breathe deeply into those lungs which bring you breath. Breathe deeply in this body which is yours. This body which is beautiful. Hold your body as beautiful. This body which is whole. Hold your body as you breathe in love and trust. Notice the miracle that is your body. Quietly, in your own heart, in your own mind, breathe, embrace your body, and say, hello, my love. Hello, beautiful. Breathe loving kindness for your body, the bodies around you. Breathe. May all beings know peace. May all beings know an end to suffering. May all beings know love. We'll remain seated as we sing together our hymns for meditation, Spirit of Life and Fuente de Amor. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots only close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Fuente de amor, ven hacia mí y al corazón cántale tu compasión. Sopla al volar, sube en la mar, hasta moldear la justicia de la vida. Arraigame, libérame, fuente de amor, ven a mí, ven a mí. I remember the first time I came into this building as your minister. As I was walking from the parking lot, I came up the small set of stairs to the patio, and I noticed to the right of the stairs, against the wall under the tree, a line of stones. Most of them looked like chipped pieces of paving stones. They're still there. And there were words painted on them. "We welcome" was on the largest of the stones, and then a line of smaller stones led down the way with words painted in many colors. All races, all ages, all beliefs, all sizes, all genders, all abilities, all colors. The stones and the words on them are lovely affirmation of our deepest wishes to welcome all who join us here. They speak simply of the values at the core of our principles, especially our commitment to the understanding that each person has worth and dignity just by existing, and that all of our lives are tied together, that we live out our lives in relationship with all that is around and within us. They're aspirations, guideposts for us as we make choices in our day-to-day lives, choices of what work to do in the world, choices of what we will pay attention to, choices about how we will choose to engage with each other as we work and talk and play and worship together, choices about how we see the world around us more clearly. I grew up in a university town. My father was a professor, and so many of our family friends were involved with the university, which had attracted scholars and students from around the world. It wasn't unusual for us to have some of my father's graduate students from West Africa for Sunday evening dinner. And I grew up with friends of wildly different cultures and origins from India and Iraq and Trinidad, friends who were Jewish and Muslim and Hindu and Christian and none of the above. It was still a predominantly white Christian city, but I was surrounded by diversity, I felt. I grew up not thinking to treat my friends differently based on what they looked like or where their family was from. And I saw that we all got along really well. So I always assumed that we lived in a really progressive, wonderful place. But the thing I never realized at the time, that I never thought about, that I never asked about, was what it was like for them to grow up in that predominantly white Christian town. I didn't see their experiences with the world outside of our friendship. I was in a Facebook conversation a little while ago with a bunch of people that I went to high school with. We were reminiscing about one of our English teachers. This was a teacher that I hold as a powerful, positive influence on me, and especially on my writing and my past work as an editor. What was new and painful in the conversation, however, was that several of my Jewish classmates shared their pain and anger at that teacher's, more often than not all that well hidden, anti-Semitism. They shared experiences of being belittled by him and ignored by him and discriminated against. It was hard to hear, and some people didn't want to hear it. But we non-Jews didn't see the experience that they had had. Our Jewish classmates lived a different experience of high school than we did. Just as white folks may not see the different reality lived in by the people of color in our lives, or just as straight folks may not see the different reality lived in by LGBTQ folk in their lives. This is why it is crucial that when those experiences are shared with us, that we don't respond dismissively, but that's not how I experienced that, or that couldn't have happened, or you must have misinterpreted. We actually didn't experience it the same way. And having that shared with us is an opportunity to see the experience in a new and different way. And I come back to those stones. One of the welcoming stones sticks in my mind and my heart a little more than the others. The stones said to me, "We welcome all sizes." That jumped out at me. I want to share with you two experiences that I've had as a staff member at Unitarian Universalist congregations. I'm not going to name the congregations. I share them and what follows not because I want sympathy, but because it's important that you understand that many people move through the world and through lives in our congregations having radically different experiences than you might. I was working in a congregation's building late one afternoon, doing some photocopying and putting things up on a bulletin board, getting ready for Sunday. There was one other person in the building with me, a congregational volunteer who was also putting things on the bulletin board. At one point, I turned to her to say hello, and she reached out her hands, started rubbing my belly, and said, "Ooh, just like the Buddha." In another congregation, my hiring had just been announced, and one of the volunteers I would be working with very closely came up to me. He shook my hand with a big smile on his face and said, "Congratulations, and then we're going to have to get you on an exercise program." Those are two experiences in two different congregations, but they are not all of the experiences like this that I've had in the congregations I've served or been a member of. And certainly not all the experiences like this I've had in my wider life. I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I've been fat, and I use that word fat importantly and on purpose. It's a descriptor and not a denigration in my world. I've been fat my entire life, and in so many ways, I I have lived, like many other fat people, in a really different reality, different from the one that people who are not fat live in. Comments, unasked for advice, random mockery, violation of body space. Writer Audrey Gordon, in her book What We Don't Talk About When We Talk About Fat, highlights that fat people live in a world that withholds medical care from us, that assumes we are both unhealthy and immoral, that makes entertainment out of our suffering. Take one example, medical care. Now, you may not be aware of the challenges and pain that heavy people often encounter when they go to their doctors for checkups or seek help for specific medical needs. Time after time, heavy people relate that they have barely shared what is going on with them when their doctor responds with, "It's because you're overweight," or "If you lose weight, this will solve itself." Imagine for a moment that level of dismissal in your medical appointment. It's certainly possible you have experienced that for other reasons. There are lots of wonderful, caring physicians out there who treat their patients with dignity. But what we hear from many, many, many heavy people is that they often encounter medical professionals who refuse to look any deeper than their weight. If they go in with knee or joint issues, it's because they are overweight, despite the fact that people who aren't seen as overweight have knee and joint issues every day. If they go in with sleep issues, it's simply because they are overweight, despite the fact that people who aren't seen as overweight have sleep issues all the time. If they go in with chronic or acute pain, if they go in with a rash, if they go in with any number of symptoms. I have experienced this, and so have many of my friends. According to psychologist Joan Chrysler, quote, numerous studies and surveys indicating that healthcare professionals often make assumptions about the health of overweight patients, consider them lazy, unmotivated, or undisciplined, and may even make the wrong diagnosis because they're so preoccupied with a person's weight. Research suggests that such attitudes may cause providers to spend less time with their patients and offer less health information and education. One study in 2006 found that obese, in quotes, patients were more likely to have significant undiagnosed medical conditions than those classified as, quote, normal or underweight, because tests were not done. Is it any wonder why many fat people simply stop seeking out medical help? In these cases, a single story is being told, a single set of expectations is being allowed to dominate. Fat people's experiences being ignored. Aubrey Gordon writes about overhearing a conversation in a restaurant by two people who were expressing deep concern for their overweight friend. "She insists she's happy, but we all know that's a lie," one of them said. "I don't care how happy she is," the other one said. "If she doesn't make some changes, she's going to die and it'll be her own damn fault." "I'm just concerned for her," she sighed. "I just want to know she's motivated. Is that too much to ask?" In the days following, Gordon writes, I couldn't get their conversation out of my head. The heartbreak of it wasn't their gossip or self-satisfaction. It wasn't their entitlement to see fat people's pain, regret, or motivation. It wasn't their certainty that their response was for her own good. For Gordon, it was their eager use of health and concern to pass harsh, heartless judgments about someone they ostensibly loved. End quote. Of course, there can be medical concerns with being heavy, but people are complex, unique individuals with a huge range of contexts and needs, and to simply assume and expect that all of a heavy person's health issues are related to their weight is unhelpful at best and dangerous at worst. All of us, thin or fat or in between, live on a continuum from perfect health, whatever that is, through to major challenges. To assume that just because someone is fat, they must have health issues, to assume that heavy people don't already move through their life knowing they are heavy, knowing the impact it has on their lives, and to approach and offer shame and judgment can only do harm. We are all already surrounded by restrictive messages about beauty and, quote, the perfect body. All of us are bombarded with advertising telling us to be ashamed of our bodies and that the only way back to health and wholeness and goodness is this diet or that exercise program. There is so much more I could go into about the different realities that fat people live with. I could spend time with you right now talking about the dangers of the diet industry, about the near impossibility of losing significant weight over a long period of time, about the unbalanced emphasis on self-improvement, personal responsibility, and willpower compared with a complete lack of attention to systemic issues of food supply and cost, about many topics and notions that would be about trying to change your thinking, to reach your intellect, you appeal to your rationality. But I'm not going to do that. I want to talk to your hearts. And I want to focus on reclaiming our bodies, all of our bodies, as good things, and building a practice of curiosity. We live in a world with many religious traditions that despise the body, that are grounded in Platonic dualism that Christianity has become grounded in, for example, good and bad, holy and unholy, that understand the body as corrupt and corruptible in comparison with the spirit and with divine reality, that understand the body as a temptation to sin, that understand sexuality as sinful, that understand physical pleasure as sinful. But there are religious traditions that embrace and celebrate our physical existence. I'm drawn to thinking about our pagan kin who honor and worship the earth and the cosmos as whole and holy and honor our part in that wholeness. My colleague Amy Beltane writes of the ways that pagan understandings, quote, evoke the playful self and invite the wise inner knowing of the body to join our rational mind so that our whole selves are present. She writes that the divine is within us and surrounds us, an immanent and intimate concept of divinity, and that we are invited to include our bodies in our spiritual experience. She continues telling a little bit more of her own story. What joy and richness is available to us, she says, if we cultivate an awareness of our own physical selves. I suffered, she said, in high school. I was fat, short, and shy. Then I discovered ancient and indigenous traditions that celebrated body. Neolithic depictions of the goddess were unambiguously fat, yet divine. Modern pagan ritual explicitly told me, you are divine. I slowly shed body shame, she said, and began to celebrate myself. What a freeing idea. My body is good. Your body is good. Our bodies are meant to be enjoyed. In the last century, these pagan understandings and the understandings of our indigenous neighbors guided our Unitarian Universalist tradition to affirm that we ourselves are part of the interdependent web of existence, not separate from it. That our own existence is sacred, that we are tied together with all of life. When we fight for the environment, when we demand that all life forms be treated with dignity, when we say that the natural world is sacred or holy or to be protected, we're talking about ourselves as well. All of us, each of us. We are part of the web. What if we really did love our bodies like they were worthy or holy, no matter what was going on with them? What if we remembered every moment that we are part of the web of life? Remembered with Rabindranath Tagore that the same stream of life that runs through my veins day and night runs through the world and dances in rhythmic measure? What if we affirmed with Sonia Renee Taylor that the body could be the location of a radical, transforming love? How might we love each other better? Love ourselves better? How might we come into relationship with each other in more loving and fulfilling ways if we knew our whole selves, our bodies and spirits and minds were holy or worthy? And knowing that about ourselves, we knew it about everyone else we encountered. How might we be different then? I keep getting stuck on the way that both of the groups I talked about, some medical professionals and concerned friends, made huge assumptions about their patients and their friends, had such certainty in the face of the complex reality of people's lives, and how that cuts off understanding and compassion and connection. I'd like us to invite us to make a practice of entering into relationships and building our systems based on curiosity and not on prejudgment, based on seeing the person in front of us as a unique expression of the cosmic reality and not someone to slot into a category so we can rule them out or demand conformity. Now, I don't mean by curiosity just asking a lot of questions. Over and over again, I hear from my fat friends about the onslaught of unsolicited, unwanted, unhelpful prying and advice they get from well-meaning friends and strangers. What if we chose to offer only advice when we were asked for it? What if we only talked with other people about their health, whoever they are, when they invite the conversation and when they have given consent for that conversation? What would that look like? What would it look like if we built practices of setting aside expectations, setting aside assumptions, setting aside our own story, to be present and see and listen to another person's story? All through the service today, you've been seeing pictures of people on the screen. Thank you, Jack, for the fabulous imagery, as always. People with bodies that don't move the way yours might. People with bodies that don't see the way yours might, that don't weigh what you do, that don't think the way you do, that don't hear the way you do. As we move through the world, in our homes, our schools, our congregations, our workplaces, we encounter an enormous variety of bodies. And the painful fact is that we live in a world where it is becoming even more dangerous for our bodies, especially those that differ from the mythical norm. We live in a time when a small group of frightened people are doing everything they can to control our bodies or make them disappear if they can't control them. Devastating attacks on reproductive choice and justice, degrading of the humanity of our trans kin, actively working to withhold life-affirming and life-saving medications and treatments from our trans siblings, attacks and eroding of access to health care for everybody, but including recently targeting the queer community by working to deny access to protective medications. I spoke a few months ago about these assaults on the sacredness of control of our bodies, and that is what I'm doing today. Because one of the ways we have to fight against these attacks, this degradation, this eroding access, is to assert our central values of the worth and dignity of every person, of every person's body. We have the ability, I think we have the responsibility, called by our convictions and the principles of love and worthiness and connection we aspire to, called by the words painted on stones that greet every visitor to this place. We have the responsibility to choose and to know what we are choosing and why. What if, rather than making assumptions and having expectations of who people are and what their lives are about, of what their experiences are and what their bodies need, what if we offered kindness, growing out of a practice of curiosity, respect, growing out of a practice of consent, justice, growing out of our commitment to always choose to see the person in front of us as whole and holy and worthy, to choose to offer them kinship and love? What would that world look like? I invite you to remain seated as we sing our closing song, How Could Anyone Ever Tell You? We'll sing it twice through. Could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that you're loving
And now, as Reverend Ian extinguishes the chalice, please read along with me in the words that appear on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Friends, will you take a deep breath with me and let it out? And breathe again, breathing in and out. I am grateful for all of you, each and every one. Sonia Renee Taylor said, as Joni shared earlier, a radical self-love world is a world that works for everybody. Creating such a world is an inside-out job. How we value and honor our own bodies impacts how we value and honor the bodies of others. As we awaken to our indoctrinated body shame, we feel inspired to awaken others and to interrupt the systems that perpetuate body shame and oppression against all bodies. There is a whisper we keep hearing. It is saying we must build in us what we want to see built in the world. When we act from this truth on a global scale using the lens of the body, we usher in the transformative opportunity of radical self-love, which is the opportunity for a more just, equitable, and compassionate world for all. As we depart from each other today, let's carry that whisper in our ears and our heart and our body, and go knowing that each person we meet with their hopes and their mind and their heart and their body, each person is holy and worthy and beautiful. Go in peace, my friends, to love and serve that world.